Morning, everybody. It's Riley from the Tree Medic here. Today, what we're doing is we're pruning this little cherry tree behind me. It's getting a little too tall for picking, and I figured I'd bring you along and kind of show you fruit tree pruning over how we would typically prune a tree. Just because fruit trees are the red-headed tree of the arboreal world when it comes to trimming. So where we would typically do best practice with, pruning a landscape tree with a fruit tree, we're always pruning with a goal in mind. So obviously we have it's about 10 to 15 feet tall. Not a huge deal, but it's getting too tall to pick, and we need to be able to protect the cherries from the birds. So I've disinfected all the tools before coming, soaked all the cutters with horticulture vinegar, which is 20% vinegar, which disinfects them. And today we're going to be doing a fruit reduction on this. Basically do the mains and then maybe a little bit of this lower stuff. But I'm gonna grab my my saddle now that I'm kind of looking at it, and saddle and a rope, and then I'll be back and we'll go kind of, hopefully you guys can hear me, otherwise I'm gonna have to do a voiceover, but we'll go over proper fruit tree pruning, because for fruit trees, pruning them is significantly different than pruning a regular tree. So all the rules that we would use for a regular tree kind of go out the window, unfortunately, because fruit trees are pruned yearly, and second of all, we're pruning them for yield. We're not pruning them for health or aesthetics. We're always pruning to increase the yield and the pickability. So where we wouldn't do specific things to, a walnut or sugar maple, we typically will with a cherry tree or pear or an apple, strictly for the sake of production. So I'm gonna go grab my saddle and a rope, and I'll be back. Alright, we're back. I've got my saddle, so I'm going to throw my saddle on, take some of the stuff out of my pockets. So, let's see if I can get a better angle here. You can see we've got some good spots to do a reduction down to kind of keep it around 10 feet. So that, with a 6-foot step ladder, should be fairly pickable. So we're going to start with the reduction, and then once we're done that, we'll get rid of any obsolete branches. Our maximum goal for today is around probably 30% live canopy foliage. Now, if we're in a production setting where we're trying to get a specific yield out of this tree year to year, I think we would likely go a little bit more aggressive than 30%. Sorry, the homeowner's got 2 big Irish wolfhounds, and they're scaring me. You can see the windows shake every time they bark, and it's a little nerve-wracking. But yeah, so main goal is to reduce the the height, make it more pickable. And the secondary goal is to increase the tree's stress and hopefully introduce the variables to create more fruit. Because healthy trees don't produce tons of fruit. However, a stressed out fruit tree produces the most. So, I'm going to take this off because I don't need my chainsaw lanyard today. Well, hopefully not. I'm going to throw my scabbard on. And grab my rope. So even though it's only like an 8-foot fall that I could take, it's still better to be tied in. Gives you a little bit more maneuverability. If you're a homeowner watching this, if you don't think you can do it from the ground, have a professional come out. It doesn't cost a lot of money, contrary to popular belief. If you're dealing with a little tree like this, most tree companies won't touch just one thing, but I had a plan to be out spraying all day, so this was just great to be in my schedule for today, because I can spray by myself, and this takes, this will probably take about 40 minutes, give or take. So everything's all cattywampus up here. There we go. Okay, so we're up here. Hopefully you can see this. So I'm going to reduce this down to here, and I'm going to reduce this down to here, and this down to this one, and this guy, and then do some tip reductions over here. Basically, we're going for a uniform height up here. It should be pretty straightforward, but yeah, anytime we're doing a reduction, the branch we reduce down to has to be 30% the size of the branch you're getting, at a minimum. 50% and higher is even better. Anything below 30%, and you shouldn't do that reduction. So yeah, let's get started here. I'll repeat, I've gone and disinfected all my tools this morning, specifically for this job, just so we don't have any cross-contamination between fruit trees, and potentially add any vectors for disease. That's a big thing. if I was a really smart man, I would have brought up my sucketers with me so I could do the reductions on this stuff, but I'm not. So we'll do the reductions and then come down and grab the sucketers and then come back and finish this off. The good news is the sucketers are just behind the camera here. So they're handy. I don't have a spot to clip them on my saddle. Yeah, right there. So you can probably see I've got a little bit of a stub left here. Not a huge deal. We'll clean that up. Sometimes it's easier to leave a stub and clean it up afterwards than it is to try and get a good cut first try. There we go. Okay. So I've got one main top to do still. This guy here, but you can see my rope's in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'll move my rope down, maybe over here or something, and then we'll take the top off. And then I'll come grab my sucketers. Okay. I'm going to grab my suckers. So I've got my suckers here, or hand pruners, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, it's just going to be, I guess I'll just go through it as we kind of do it, but I'll do some of this lower stuff just to make it a little bit easier to get back up and do the upper stuff. So branches like these, where they're nice and thick, fantastic to keep. However, this is growing straight up and we want outwards growth. So this isn't ideal to keep, but there's a spur here with a bud on it, so we'll take that. This is a stub, take that off. Again, we've got a branch that's trying to grow into things here, so we'll take that. Take this one off there. Upwards growing bud here, so we'll take, or twig here, so we'll take that. Yeah, so we just kind of go through methodically. This is going to be not beneficial to anyone because it's growing up and rubbing on multiple different branches. So if we get rid of something like that before it becomes a problem, even better. I don't know, this is the first time I've ever done this in front of a camera. Most of the time I have students and stuff that are asking questions, so it's a little nerve-wracking for me, even though I've done this a million times. But I'm tired of seeing gardeners doing all these videos on how to prune your fruit trees and spreading misinformation. There's some really great videos on it, but when I run a class, I get a million different questions, and a lot of people will try and argue with you. Well, I saw a video on YouTube and this is how they do it. There's a million ways to skin a cat. I just think my way is a lot more right than everyone else's. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm right, but I've seen success with the way that I do fruit tree pruning. I think it depends on what you expect your yield to do every year, and what your maintenance schedule is going to be. Once we've done what we're going to do today, this should be a pretty easy maintainable tree for a homeowner, so we shouldn't have to come back and prune it necessarily. And just a reminder that I'm going to say this a million times, my tools were disinfected beforehand. Do not prune a fruit tree until your tools are disinfected. The chance you run of having disease transfer from tree to tree, especially if you have multiples of the same, is too high. Always disinfect your tools. We disinfect either between every tree or between every property, depending on what we're doing. Oh yeah. Got some of this lower stuff cleared out, so I'm going to go back up, not have to fight quite as much to get to where I want to be. A lot of the rest of this is just going to be succator work, similar to what I just did on the lower portion of this, but high. So we're just gonna get back up. Remember, if you're not confident to do this from a ladder, I don't recommend that you use ladders. Just get an arborist to pop by and do the initial prune on your fruit trees. It'll be better for you in the long run, especially if they're like me. You can just hang out and watch how they do everything. Pick up some tips and tricks. But yeah. So we've got one right here that's rubbing pretty violently over here. But we have a really nice growing branch right there. So we could do a reduction down to here, but if this gets laden with fruit, that's going to rub again. So we were just going to take this whole branch off. Personal preference, so you don't have to trim your fruit tree the way I think it should be trimmed. I don't live at yours. I don't have to look at it every day. But use the advice that I'm giving you to make educated decisions. Alright, so now we can do some reductions up here, get everything very similar height. Obviously it's not going to grow in perfect symmetry, so we are going to have some unevenness to height in general, but with yearly maintenance and everything, it should be the perfect size for picking. So we'll just keep working away on this tree here. And I've actually never met this homeowner before, so hopefully they're pleased with what we do. If they're not, I'm not sure what to tell you. With enough wood glue, we can stick it back together though. It's a little bit uncommon for me to not meet a homeowner before we do your work, but sometimes the timing just doesn't work out. Okay. Yeah, and the main purpose of the prune we're doing today is to make it a more pickable and maintainable tree. So the big thing is keeping it reduced down and not allowing it to get much taller, at least for this year. Beautiful reductions. I broke this branch, so we're just gonna get rid of it. Oh, a little bit too much mustard on that one. Do a bud reduction there. Yeah. Okay, so for the most part, this is all one uniform height. A few more tips, and we'll be hunky-dory. Obviously, if you break anything while you're up here, if you're an arborist watching this, make sure you cut it out. Don't make this all look bad. If you're a homeowner and you like the way that broken branches look, I mean, all the power to you, but it's not ideal. So, main goal now, if I can get all my gear unstuck, you know, we finished doing height reduction. So the main goal now is to get anything growing directly inside, into the interior of the tree, because that's not going to be useful for bearing fruit in the future. So yeah, you know, we got stuff like this growing in, so stuff, you know, we can trim that out and just give the tree a better pickable structure for the future. I can just kind of jam myself in wherever I can get. Okay, and now that's basically it. It's pretty straightforward. So you can see we've got a good reduction on it now. It's a nice thin interior now, nothing too crazy. You know, obviously a lot of brush came out, but you know, that all adds into our 30% live foliage reduction here. Big thing to remember, if you're dealing with fruit tree disease, so with prunus you get a lot of black knot. With apples you get apple scab and apple cedar rust. Pears you get blossom blast and fire blight. Big thing is, if you notice disease on your tree and you've pruned, so big thing is, if you notice disease on your tree and you've pruned it, you don't compost the branches or anything. Make sure they're sent, one, they're either burnt or they're sent to a landfill, because the spores can overwinter on the buds or the flowers or the leaves. You got to clean up the leaves if you notice a foliar disease. You got to do all these things. So big thing is, be aware of what's on your tree, especially when you're pruning, and make sure that you disinfect your tools so you don't pass diseases on. But yeah, hopefully that was informative for everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.